Welcome, everyone, to the Community Organizing Conference for a group that is presently proceeding under the name of the Supreme Court of Law for the United States of America. The quick explanation there is that the United States of America, wonder of wonders, presently has no Supreme Court of Law. The present Supreme Court is a municipal tribunal that doesn't render unanimous verdicts. It functions by majority rule, and it is founded in Roman Empire municipal civil law. It is not part of the higher law, the common law, as referred to in the Seventh Amendment, clearly indicating common law is the higher law there, the wording of the Seventh Amendment, and that is what a real court of law is supposed to be about. There's approximately 300,000 precincts all across the USA. Each one of those is supposed to have their own court of law, and that's what we're all about here. We can get into that as the conference proceeds, and welcome you one and all. And we have a little tradition here that our non-Christians have kindly respected for us in let me minimize going with an opening prayer here. A sizable number of us do profess Christianity, and I am kind of the chief organizer of this particular conference, and it really helps me to facilitate the discussion a whole lot better when we go through the Christian ritual of opening with a prayer to the champion of truth and justice in the universe, as we Christians perceive him anyway, and with all due respect to other religious or even non-religious denominations, I would like to go ahead and proceed here. Here under true God Yahweh Jehovah, God of Abraham, Jehovah of armies, in the name of your precious Son, Jesus Yeshua, please help guide and direct our conference. Help us to be humble in our discussions and open to learning without compromising our principles. And even if there are others in our conference that are speaking in conflict with our principles, help us to choose our words kindly and diplomatically and respectfully, so that hostilities do not erupt. Help us, please, to be humble in all of these areas, as were the disciples before our Lord and Savior Jesus Yeshua. And in light of the principle established by Jesus, that the greatest among us must be the least, must be the servant of the community, washing the feet of the disciples, Jesus did that. Please help us to keep those things in mind. Jesus didn't go around picking fights with people. We don't need to be picking fights. So in the name of your precious Son, Jesus Yeshua, please bless this conference. Amen. And proceeding on from there, new conference hosting and scheduling policies. We are kind of re-engineering. We've recently split our conferences. Monday evening conferences are more focused on organizing responsibly self-governing communities and catering to right-wing beliefs and ideals and principles, whereas this conference is more inclined to cater to left-wing ideals and principles and to more focus on left-wing community organizing and policies. And we welcome people from both wings, and especially the center, the Libertarian Center, but from both wings on both calls. And we just note that if conversations start getting heated, we are going to resolve it in favor of, in this call, we will resolve issues in favor of the left wing, and we will let it go at that. We will shut down conversation, and the reverse polarity over on our Monday evening right-wing conferences. And we are presently functioning through two different hosting companies. The right-wing conferences on Monday are hosted on Zoom, and these left-wing organizing conferences are hosted on freeconferencecall.com. And agenda item 2C, welcome to the Supreme Court of Law's dedicated left-wing community organizing conference to everybody. And at this point, item 2D, we do like to call for new cases that anyone has to place on the docket or any new agenda items to be added to next week's agenda. Does anyone have either of those items? At this point, we're making a call for such items to be articulated so that we can get them in process here for accommodation of the needs of our community. Does anyone have any new cases or new agenda items for us? Anyone?
Charles, this is Kamala. Actually, I don't have anything just yet, but what I would like to do, because I know the call is being recorded, is to let you know that while I am on the call for the information, I am not specifically left-leaning. Just wanted to make that clear.
Okay, I think there might be a lot of people more in the center that are in that category. I consider myself center libertarian also. But yeah, thank you for pointing that out. That does help everybody to kind of recognize that these parameters aren't firm. They're just general to let everybody know that if the conversation does get heated, in this conference, we're going in a left-wing direction, and we're basically going to cut off the right-wing argument in favor of the left-wing argument. Regardless of the merits, that's the way we're doing it, just to keep the peace in this conference.
Yeah, but if you're going to go ahead and you shouldn't have any type of heated argument on either call, regardless.
Yeah,
it's like it shouldn't get to that point. And when it gets to that point,
thank you, Matt.
You just got to get rid of the people who are doing it.
Yeah, Matt. Maybe we can ask Lewis to comment on that. I think Lewis has a little bit of an example with the way you and some of the others were doing talking on the Monday evening call a couple of conferences ago. I do hope we can get through that, but I would like to. Lewis has voiced a little bit of frustration with not only Michael's comments but yours also, and maybe we can go ahead and have that out right here now. Lewis, would you like to address Matt's issue here?
I would reserve that for a little bit later, if needed. You know, one would think that these conversations would not get heated, but we have evidence of them doing so. So as such, I believe Charles's statement was warranted, and I don't need to address Matt directly unless we get to that point. And at that point, I will. We've been joined by someone, and maybe their first time on the call, based upon the call board. They've been on the call under 4 minutes right now. Would you like to introduce yourself? Greetings. They're doing some screen sharing, and currently is muted. So what I'm going to do is unmute the. Okay, go ahead.
Just here to listen, to pay attention to see where we go from here.
I had difficulties hearing you, sir, because we've got someone else with some background noise. So if you're not speaking at this time, please use *6 to mute yourself, and then you can use *6 to unmute as well. So, sir, can you repeat what you just said?
Well, my name is Andre McCullough, and I just joined in to see where everybody's at, what's going on. This is my first time listening in, so that's all I'm doing.
Welcome, Andre. All right.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. Welcome. And might I ask what state you are either calling in from?
Detroit, Michigan.
Excellent.
So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
Charles, are you up?
Yes. Thank you all. There's my agenda. I lost it in my new Linux desktop environment here, bouncing around. And Matt, I hope that's good. Maybe we can discuss our issues about how to get past our conflicts here and everything a little bit later, as Lewis suggested. But right now, I would like to move on if there's no objections from anybody.
Good idea.
Thank you. Thank you. Hearing none. Let's go. Progress reports. In gathering signatures on various documents, oaths of office, jury verdicts, court directives to specific municipal government office holders, and any public affirmations or denials of qualified elector status of anybody. Is anyone in attendance on this call have any issues related to those items that they would like to discuss? Hearing none. I would like to briefly mention I have currently been propagating our model jury verdict on the coronavirus complaint that Abraham Duran has brought before us, where we're declaring it all to be a bunch of fraud and part of a conspiracy to reduce everybody to a military police state form of government. We've already got the model jury verdict typed up. We just need signatures, and I've been sharing that with Chris Gave. Gary, I was going to get you a copy of that too, because I think that's one of the primary areas where we can start making traction on real important issues. And I'll try to get that out to you later this evening here, Gary. And anybody else that would like to see the web links to the documents, please let me know. And I'll go ahead and get those specific documents out to you. That this whole thing about the coronavirus and the accompanying military police state and mandatory vaccinations and things like that, and shutting down the entire economy, those are really serious issues. And we need to build a broad-based community consensus that's truly objective, as all common law juries are supposed to do. And so anybody that is open to helping with that effort, please contact me by email or maybe speak up a little bit later in the conference here as we proceed to more pressing issues. Any comments or questions there real quick? Hearing none. At this point, item 2F, Lewis Hammond has some research on the U.S. Supreme Court case that was happened near the Civil War, Municipal War, Dred Scott versus Sanford case, where apparently the Civil War did not cure all of the evils that the Dred Scott case perpetrated. And Lewis, I believe, has a prepared presentation that we're going to take a little bit of time and go ahead and do a bit of a deep dive into Lewis's presentation on these issues. I'm really looking forward to this. Lewis, please present your concerns to our group here.
Okay, thank you, Charles. I was hoping that Sa, a member of our Wayne County and Michigan Republic here, had the ability to make this call because during our conversation on our February the 1st virtual assembly, Sa presented a different position and one that, or perspective, one that I'd not heard before. My question to Charles was how, if any, could the Supreme Court of Law affect that decision, overturn it, or affect that? Please forgive my dog in the back. I don't know what my wife is doing with our dogs, but there's some background noise. If it gets to be too much, please just let me know. So that was my question to Charles, is how could the Supreme Court of Law affect that decision, as it is, in my opinion, one of the worst decisions that the Supreme Court has ever made in their existence. And it actually passed 7-2. So it really wasn't even close at the time. And it was prior to what Charles refers to as the Municipal War. And Sa's position was that the 14th Amendment is actually null and void. And, well, in fact, as opposed to me attempt to summarize his position, I want to play just take 3 minutes to present the conversation.
But if you don't have any of these other pieces, you don't.
Okay, Tom, if you could, please mute yourself, either on your phone or *6. Thank you. What you're about to hear is from just an excerpt, only 3 minutes, a little over 3 minutes, 45 seconds, from our call a week ago this past Monday on the Wayne County Republican Michigan Assembly. Uh-oh. Can everyone hear that or no? Does anyone hear that?
Very faintly.
It's really, really faint, Lewis.
Is it? Okay. Let me. Don't hear it. Okay. One moment here. Okay, I'm going to try it again.
If I might, Lewis, Charles.
Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, I think it's good to put this on the agenda of our Saturday conferences. Yes, definitely. And I appreciate your explanation of the elements of what point you're concerned about. Apparently, black people are still being considered slaves, at least in part, probably, because of the precedent set by Dred Scott versus Sanford, and that erroneous decision never been corrected. I have spent time in the Dred Scott case. I know it's a powerful case, but I hadn't gleaned that particular element from it. And an issue like this could be a massive groundswell, moral high ground, legal high ground type of positioning that I would love to be involved with, working with you all on assembling our own jury to overturn that evil decision. I yield.
Excellent. Go ahead. Is there anyone who would like to comment on that?
Landmark decision of Dred Scott versus John F. Sanford. That decision totally made the 14th Amendment null and void. I think we're missing the point of why that decision is such a landmark decision. It really didn't have anything to do with African descent. If it states that people of African descent cannot be citizens of the United States, then that means that anybody that comes into the United States as a certificated person is not a citizen of the United States. So the 14th Amendment is null and void under the Supremacy Clause. It has no standing. But because we are accepting the 14th Amendment status, they'll keep treating you as a slave. And it's not just black people. I have noticed every person that declares that they are 14th Amendment United States citizens is a slave. And now, do others get treated differently? Yeah, that's true. But the landmark decision of Dred Scott, I don't believe it to be an evil decision. I believe it to be a marker in how things should have been done under the Articles as opposed to under the Constitution. Because it was a decision based on it. If you have people that have come from all, you had immigrants coming from everywhere. Thomas Jefferson had more people in the United States Constitution than any person that was already here on this land. And making those decisions on what should be and what should not be. And he was an immigrant himself, but somehow he became a citizen. So I would just suggest kind of looking a little bit deeper into that decision, because I don't believe it's an evil decision. I believe that decision makes freedoms for anybody that does not want to be a 14th Amendment citizen. And I yield.
I'm interested in continuing that conversation because that on that side, I'm at the other side on that one. Let me ask you this. On Saturday, I think the next Saturday call is going to be the 13th at 5 p.m. Are you going to be available to participate on that call?
I will. Who are you talking to, Lewis?
Yeah, that was the excerpt. So I might have gotten tied up because he did indicate to me earlier today that he was going to be on that on this call, because that was a position that I've never heard before. Couple of things before I go any further with my statement, because I believe that words matter, and as such, I try to be as accurate as possible in my speech. So number one, I don't refer to people as slaves or even the enslaved, but I actually believe, based on my education and research, that these people that we're discussing were prisoners of war. Okay, and someone will call me and say, well, what war was that? But I believe that the people that we're discussing and the descendants of were prisoners of the War of 1591 on the Songhai Empire of Western Africa, specifically by the Moors. But the Songhai Empire probably encompassed about 10 modern-day nations on the African continent. If those on the call are not familiar with the Songhai people, you might be familiar with the great city Timbuktu. That was actually within Songhai, in the Songhai Empire. So when I use the term black, which I do, I'm speaking about a very specific people. I'm speaking of the descendants of the people of the Songhai Empire, not to the amount of melanin in one's skin. Those are two different things. So I'm not talking about Moors, Hebrews, or the tribes here, most of which were in fact black, or would be termed black in color before the existence of the $5 Indian. So I want everyone to know I'm speaking of a very specific people. And that's, based upon that, one might conclude that, well, the current vice president of the de facto government, Kamala Harris, then based upon your definition, is not black. And you would be 100% correct. And I've had that, she's not. She's of Indian descent on both parts, mother and father. The father has a different nationality, being Jamaican. So she's often held up to be of Indian and Jamaican ethnicity. That is incorrect. Both of her parents are Indians, just from different castes of Indians. Again, her father is Jamaican by nationality only, not ethnicity. And anyone who's ever seen a picture of the man would be able to recognize that immediately. So, that being said, they kind of group people of African descent, when that's not even the case. Morocco is northern Africa. And it was much larger, the Moroccan Empire at that time, than the current nation of Morocco. The reason I believe that the Dred Scott decision is important, and obviously the legislature did as well, having to enact the Civil Rights Act of 1866, because of that as well, backing up the 13th Amendment. And by the way, I am aware that the 13th Amendment is not the original 13th Amendment. So we don't need to go there right now. I recognize that the original 13th Amendment was the amendment regarding the titles of nobility. I am also aware, however, that the proposed 13th Amendment to replace that actually had 20 sections, not the 2 which ultimately passed based upon compromise. And anytime I hear the word compromise within this corporation's legislative body, which is the United States government, I believe that I think that was Gary of Nevada spoke of earlier, it makes me very nervous because it doesn't work for the benefit of any peoples of color, whether we're talking about descendants of the Songhai, whether we're talking about Hebrews mistakenly as black, Moors mistakenly as black, or members of the tribes that have been here from the beginning mistaken for black. But if that did not need to be, the Civil Rights Act of 1866 would have never needed to be enacted. However, it did, because this corporation was very specific on who its members are. I don't have any issue with identifying the United States of America Corporation as a corporation, because it was a commercial venture from the very beginning and has never ceased to be. And with the creation, my difference with Saw regarding this matter is that the Dred Scott decision does not obliterate the 14th Amendment based upon supremacy, the Supremacy Clause, because the 14th Amendment actually created a different citizen. It created an entity that had never been in place before, which is why we talk about civil rights, not human rights, but civil rights. I believe the Kennedy, one of the Kennedys, bombing specifically, when there were some, when you had black people being attacked in Alabama and churches being bombed, and I believe there were 4 little girls that were killed during one of these bombings, when there was a discussion that the tapes actually shown after they were released, that he was in a discussion with his brother saying, okay, well, go down and protect what rights? What rights are we going down to protect? And because this corporation has never recognized the human rights of black people in the country, ever. And I do believe that that is a result of the Dred Scott decision. It has allowed that racist undertone to exist and now affect every aspect of any people of color, okay, in terms of their life. Not specifically black people, but I will say any and all. As I indicated, that the 14th Amendment citizen, he believes is a slave. We are in agreement there. But I believe that that is a certificated person. It has nothing to do with the flesh and blood being. The birth certificate, I believe, is evidence of an event, creation of that business trust organization or elective franchise. I do believe that racism right now is seen in all areas that affects one life, including housing, finance, commerce, obviously policing. We see this on a weekly basis, if not daily. You know, and it hasn't escalated. It's only now being recorded and broadcast to the public, but this has been in existence from the very beginning. Education, okay, as well as health care. Right now, education, you have over 165 state Republican office holders that are right now attempting to censor education and prevent the 1619 project from being taught in any K through 12 facilities by withholding funding. So once one attempts to correct, I should say, the education or the miseducation of its citizens, which has existed from the very beginning, and I can point to one group that's been very successful, which are the Daughters of the Confederacy, in presenting what they've gotten into the textbooks, not only throughout the South, but throughout the entire country with regards to the municipal war, okay, as Charles indicates. But one other area that it is prevalent in is also health care. So when these, and for those that are screen sharing right now, I have to take this plug right here, racism in healthcare. There's an upcoming presentation, and this young lady happens to be my niece. So I've said on other calls, I've got a number of family members that are RN. So Crystal Mack here, you see, who's an RN, BSN as well, and is currently studying for her doctorate in nursing as an anesthesiology student there at Emory College in Georgia. I think she's in Atlanta right now. She's going to be conducting or be a presenter or a presenter on this upcoming call, which discusses racism in healthcare and the disparities in medical education, research, policy, and care delivery. So these things exist, and it is my belief that these things are all a result of this decision right here. I believe that this is this along with the immunity, umbrella immunity of the police officers is why these officers feel comfortable with shooting a black man in the back while he is walking away, running away, sitting on his couch, shooting a black woman and killing her in the bed of her apartment, where the only officer that has been charged right now to date is an officer that was charged for missing her. And his bullets went into the neighboring apartment and hit the wall. That's what the only officer in the Breonna Taylor case has been charged for, missing. So I believe that this decision is at the root of all. And so my question was, how can the Supreme Court of Law affect this decision? If not, then on the Michigan State Republic, once a Supreme Court of Law or even the 100 Court is in place, I would expect that we attack this decision because I believe that it is at the root of these evils that are being perpetrated on the descendants of the Songhai Empire. With that, I yield for any questions or comments or concerns. Go ahead, Charles. You got the floor.
Thank you. Sounds like others would like to talk too. You've raised some really energized issues there, Lewis. I'm inclined to think that your position is more accurate and that Assad is merely misguided. Because the 14th Amendment slavery amendment did just create a new legal fiction person. Every patriot that's done his homework knows, it's common vernacular to refer to 14th Amendment slaves because amongst those of us that have done their homework, because and apparently Saab is behind the curve in comprehending that. I would like to briefly point out that I think you and me, our next step is like we've done with the coronavirus jury verdict complaint. The next step is to start working on a rough draft of a jury verdict because that's where we want to go. That's where we need to bring the community together on what our judgment should be in response to this perceived interpretation of the continuing of this evil. And so I would just suggest that would be what we should place at the top of our agenda, and maybe you and I can work on something like that in less public forums or in public forums, however you want to do it, Lewis. But that would be my constructive way about how our Supreme Court of Law might address this particular evil that is of such a paramount concern, especially for you and your black brothers and sisters here. I yield.
Okay. I agree with that. Starting from the decision itself, and certainly on a less public forum as well until we're ready to bring it forward. So anyone else on the call? This is open floor at this time. I'd like to hear any comments.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You've got the floor.
I definitely believe that needs to be done. Not to mention our government has devastated our communities, our neighborhoods. They're continuing on doing what they're doing. I have just begun to understand the plight of my family and my ancestors. And I just was wondering, how can we stop this? You know what I'm saying? Looking to change my identity to go somewhere else when that's all I know. We had a class the other day, and I asked individuals, you still charging us for stuff that our parents and our grandparents and our ancestors got into, didn't know no better. Now they teaching their children how to be maneuvered into today's slavery without telling them that we need not be a part of this. So to go back to the Dred Scott case, to go back to the 14th Amendment and unravel it, I believe that is the best solution. I believe that even if you have a difference of opinion on what it actually means, the gist of just getting to the point of how do you unravel it along with the other many hundreds and thousands of laws that have been created to set us away from human rights as well as civil rights. I just wish that I was more in tune to understanding how to do this, because that would be my fight. All of my life I fought in my neighborhood. I was fighting a different way. I was fighting like they wanted me to fight so I could wind up in jail and go to the penal institutions and be a part of the stock market where they trading my energy on the stock market. I'm learning today what's really going on. So I have not paid attention to these calls, but I am so glad the day that I chose to pick up this call, because this is a conversation, and I messed around and hit the button, and I got tied off for a minute, but then when I came back on, it said it was only 10 individuals on this call. This call needs about 2,000 or 3,000 people on it to get a good understanding of what we need to do. But I do understand that it's going to only be the few that make the difference. I'm just glad I had the opportunity to pay attention to you gentlemen and in this call. So thanks for letting me share as I yield.
Okay, and we're glad that you're here. And I think that you've been on one of our other calls, our Wayne County and Michigan calls on Monday, so I'm hoping that you once again become active there, because I'm in agreement that this call should have 1,000. We've got 1,000 limit on this particular forum, and we're not close to it, as you've mentioned. I think we've got about 12 now on this call. But also, it doesn't take as many as people believe, as long as we have got active members that are willing to go. And with the model that we've adopted in joining our constitutional townships here on Michigan is a model put forth by Charles, the Exodus 18 model of 10 households creating a township, 10 townships, creating a precinct, 10 precincts creating then the county, and looking to put in place 100 courts. And also, as we've now got some others on Saginaw County, Macomb County, Oakland County, that are looking to duplicate our efforts once we have members from other counties here on Michigan. I'd like a Supreme Court of Law here on Michigan as well. So not only on the national level, but on the state level, so we can affect change here. And it doesn't take as many as you might believe. So if we can just start with those townships of 10, and from that township of 10, have one household or one member designated or willing to step up and act as township constable. And also another office here that we're looking to occupy here on Michigan, you might be familiar with the Justices of the Peace, that we can affect change, and we can do it even though we don't have the thousands. We can affect some type of change, as we're moving forward. So I'm glad that you took the time to hit this call today as well, and I look forward to hearing you on Mondays, on our Monday calls moving forward. I yield for any comments.
If I may, Louis, do we have a name with the gentleman that spoke so well there?
Yes, that was Andre.
Andre? Okay, thank you, Andre. You spoke well.
Thank you.
Are there other comments or questions in regard to, comments in response to Louis's presentation here?
Well, so far, I think one of the main problems is that we have a police force that's militarized, and they all think that they have a soldier aspect over us, to where we have to do, where we have to do what we're told when we're told. And when I was growing up, I didn't mind talking to the cops. And now I see one, I want to get away from them. If I'm in the car, one comes up behind me, I turn off. Whatever I have to do so he doesn't get behind me, I want nothing to do with him. If I have to call him for something, I try not to. It's just something that all the way around, they've been mistrained. They used to have a balance about them to where they used common sense, and that's gone. Now they just look at it to where, as soon as they can take some kind of enforcement action, that's all they're interested in doing, whatever it might be. So until we get them demilitarized, we're going to continue to have this problem. And it got so bad that Okay, this is 2021, April of 2007. I had one of these monsters break my kneecap. And it's like, I sued him and I won, but it's like, it never should have happened that way. It was completely ridiculous about how the whole thing even came down. But that's the way they are today. And it's like, it's shocking. And, until we can get rid of that problem, we're going to have more of this stuff going on. I can go right down the list of people that I'm aware of. Thank God I don't know any of them. But I'm aware of them getting shot, getting killed, all sorts of things that have done at the behest of the police. And it's like, come on already. What the hell's going on here? So something has to break because we can't have that go on. This country was not founded as the government telling us what to do at every whim that they happen to come across. The latest ridiculousness I heard was that Biden wants to keep people from coming in and out of Florida because Florida, they don't push the mask down there. Just take a look at this COVID crackdown nonsense.
Matt.
Forget COVID. It's communistic. So that's where we're at with all this. But that's
thank you, Matt.
If I may respond just very briefly, Charles, to that comment. Okay, number one, I agree completely with Matt regarding the militarization of the police force, and that needs to be, turned back completely. Also, I would hope that my statements did not imply that other ethnicities were not under these tyrants and pirates as well, because they do. I mean, and now that we've got so many cameras, not their cameras, their body cams, because they'll turn those off. Okay, and there are places they'll turn those off in Louisiana and sick the dogs on people, and almost all the time it's black people and often teenagers even there in Louisiana, some as young as 13. So I did not, and I hope no one took from my statement that it is only black people that are being targeted. However, the likelihood of black people being killed in these encounters is 4 to 5 times higher than any other ethnic group. So that being a focus, and I got to go back to the Dred Scott decision and their qualified immunity, those two things. The Dred Scott decision and the so-called qualified immunity that these pirates and tyrants have are things that need to be corrected. Yours was an extreme case when they broke a kneecap, and there have been other cases where they've even had white citizens that were shot and killed with their hands up. And I can think of one right now. I can't get out of my mind in a hotel hallway. Another homeless guy literally beaten to death, calling for his dad, at the time. So, yeah, there are those cases. But when we look at the numbers and the ratios in terms of population size, it is absolutely ridiculous and irrefutable. So it does need to be corrected. We have some, animosities in terms of even calling and utilizing the sheriff. I've been involved in some people when they said, well, when the municipal police organization is doing this, or the third, call the sheriff's department. Well, okay. Depending upon where you're located within the country, you may want to call the sheriff and you may not, because that sheriff's badge originates out of what they call the fugitive slave catcher law. And that's where they didn't even change the badge itself. They changed only what went onto the badge. And symbols are perhaps more important than words, okay, because one doesn't even have to be literate to recognize a symbol. And that 5-star symbol of the sheriff badge still invokes a certain period of time and a memory, which may, and I'm native to Michigan, Detroit specifically. However, the roots of my family go back to Alabama on both sides. And I don't know if there's something that could be even within the DNA, but it is a learned or taught reaction, okay, or mechanism, and can even be considered a survival mechanism. So the cells of my very being recognize certain symbols and to go into a survival mode. And we just have to collectively, as a people, attack certain areas. And again, I think that this is an area that this strikes at the root of the problem. So, Charles, with that, I yield.
Thank you, Lewis. Is there further comments or questions on Lewis's presentation here? Anybody? Hearing none. I would like to briefly, let me turn my video back on. I would like to briefly point out that I was surprised, Lewis. This is the first time I've heard you articulate the chain of logic from the Dred Scott decision, considering black people, or enslaved black people to be property, is actually somehow modernly manifesting in some type of legal precedent that's apparently still on the books that black people are of an inferior class, and modern-day police officers, especially high-level Masons or members of particular religious denominations that are also inclined towards totalitarianism, that they know that the case law is apparently still there, allowing them to go ahead and murder black people with pretty much impunity, whereas they'll only the repercussions are only maybe twice as great or something for murdering white people, and thereunder they just feel more free to go ahead and murder black people. Apparently that case law is still on the books, according to your interpretation. Am I summarizing there correctly, Lewis?
Yes, it is still on the books in throughout many communities, throughout many states, and there's actually been studies done to this effect. One most recently on Chicago, specifically, over 3 years, that shows this. And they show even that black officers were less likely to even use force against either white or black as white officers. And white officers were more apt to use force specifically against black people. And this was studying the statistics over a 3-year period of time. It was in Chicago, which has that's got enough statistics there in terms of violent crime to really, get a good testing amount there. So yeah, there are studies that indicate this, Charles. Yes, to this day.
Okay. Final call for comments or questions on this issue. Anybody? Hearing none. If there's no objection, Lewis, can we put a wrap on it and move on to our summary with Paul Nally about seeking judicial remedy through the grand jury process?
Certainly.
All right.
Screen.
Brother Paul, are you able to articulate a summary of how your efforts with the grand juries and seeking accountability from corrupted public servants here is coming along there, Paul? Paul, you got your mute on? Paul, are you there? I can see you on the screen. Oh. I think in light of Paul's difficulty in articulating at this time, I think Michael is the most up-to-speed other person that might be able to fill in on this agenda item, in light of the fact that Paul seems unable to communicate at this point. Michael, would you be able to address this agenda item 2G at all?
Just so you know, before Michael takes the floor, Paul, you're muted. If you can hear me, you've got yourself on mute. You're self-muted, not muted on my end.
Okay.
I yield. Good.
Paul, are you unmuted yet?
No, he's not unmuted as of yet. He's got himself muted. So.
Okay. Maybe we can ask Michael to fill in here. Michael, can you address the issues of trying to make progress with the grand juries here generally? Michael.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now, yes.
Okay. Yes, we're going to go forward with it down here in Florida, and we're going to file our own case, and it's going to replicate the one that Paul has filed, but we're going to give it a shot, and we feel that we have a chance of getting a grand jury to listen to the evidence and the problem in Georgia and Arizona as well. So it's in the early stages. We've just been discussing it, but there's a lot of support for doing it down here, and people are fed up with the courts not examining the evidence. So we'd like to have a grand jury take a look at it. Okay.
And I think that might plug into our next agenda item. Maybe you could continue on a little bit. Our agenda item 2H is about the allegations that there's massive fraud in vote counting here. We don't want to spend too much time on this particular right-wing issue, but maybe you could give us a quick summary of efforts proceeding in that direction here, Michael?
Well, it's been made. The claim has been made by two different groups, Peter Navarro and the Allied Security Group out of Texas, and they're both quite professional organizations, and the efforts have been very thorough in their examinations, and trying to find my report, and I don't see it here handy. But yeah, it's there was a production this week that was released by Mike Lindell, the man that owns the pillow company, My Pillow. And it was a 2.5-hour, almost 3-hour presentation. You can view it yourself if you go to his website, Michael J. Lindell, or just Google his name, and it'll pop up. It's called Absolute Proof. And he's got a series of experts on there, including military, technology experts, just a whole host of people that were very thorough and persuasive in their reporting. And this isn't going away. The momentum is building. And in the state of Arizona, the Senate is preparing to arrest the County Board of Supervisors for refusing to turn over the ballots and the machines for examination and investigation. So this is getting very interesting, and the momentum is building, and rightfully so. So with that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That was a good summary. I wonder if Paul maybe perhaps figured his mute off here. Paul, are you at all available yet? You've been muted. You're muted on your end there, Paul, if you can unmute yourself. I think we should probably proceed on to agenda item 2I.
Charles, if I may.
Michael.
Yeah, I forgot one very important item. Something very interesting has happened in the state of Arizona. We have an actual election expert, a Democrat, by the name of John Brakey that has been welcomed into the team there, along with some other party members from the Republican Party and the Ron Paul team. What's their? I'm trying to think of the name of the other party. I'm having a senior moment here. Forgive me. Anybody remember the Ron Paul party? I forget the name of it.
Libertarian?
Yeah, Libertarian. Excuse me. Libertarian Party. So the fact that we've got these different parties involved out there is growing evidence that there is momentum building that is, transpartisan. So that's a good sign. And this John Brakey has filed a suit. I think it was on Friday, and it's going forward. So we'll report on it next week a little further, I'm sure. So I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And to follow up quickly on that, on our YouTube channel and on our archive for our video recordings under constitutionalgov.us and our Supreme Court of Law, both of those web links have archives of video clips and the main videos. I think about 2 conferences back or so, our Monday conference before last, Mr. Brakey was on with us, a Democrat that is saying that vote fraud transcends party lines, and there's obviously some skullduggery going on here, and he's a Democrat. But he's based on principles. He's a principled Democrat and he's also concerned about this goofy voting system. I'd like to say that I like to believe that I'm similarly principle oriented, but I consider it kind of a lost cause when I believe Mr. Trump could have stood his ground and fought about this massive fraud, and Mr. Trump just rolled over and played dead, in spite of all his huffy-puffy rhetoric. I'm really disappointed in Mr. Trump, and I don't think he's worthy of support. I don't think Mr. Biden is a worthy candidate either. I think we need to invoke process to get somebody in control of the government that is superior to either Mr. Biden or Mr. Trump. That's what I think, but I'm kind of going off point there. Is there any other comments on either of these 2 issues about the vote fraud or the judicial process with the grand juries before we move on to our next agenda item? Any other comment? Are you? Hearing none. Is there somebody there?
Paul has muted himself. So, Paul, are you?
Thank you.
You here?
Charles.
Oh.
Paul.
Real quick, I apologize in case somebody had wanted to speak to me earlier. I had interrupting phone calls. But basically, the news to report now is that we have found a process server who is willing. He's a former Marine. He's about 6'3", and we have a legal opinion that a process server can walk into a federal courthouse, walk down to the bailiff of the grand jury, ask the bailiff to ask the foreman to come out and serve him with a petition. We expect that to happen next Tuesday morning, and that's the latest update.
Thank you, Paul. That sounds like a powerful development in our favor here. Does that sound right?
Absolutely. But you see, the nice thing about a grand jury inquisition into all this mess is when they get through, they are going to be in a position to look the American people in the eye, who is their neighbors. Keep in mind, grand jurors are not politicians. They are our neighbors. And they're going to be able to look every one of us in the eye and say, we have seen the evidence, and here is what we have found. And when I hear that from a grand jury, that ends all the debate right then. We will all know what the facts are. Thank you, and I yield.
Thank you, Paul.
May I?
Yes, is this Kamala?
Yes, it is. I did hear him say that they would be going in. So now, is this a common law grand jury as we're anticipating, or a statutory grand jury? And where was it exactly that they were going inside, and for what purpose? Could you please elaborate a little more on that?
Yes, ma'am. This is a United States District Court grand jury, statutory grand jury. Well, actually, it's to be explicit as to their standing, they are a Fifth Amendment court of inquiry. And they were picked up from the common law and set down into the black letter law of our Constitution in Amendment 5. And what we are doing is asking them here in Atlanta to initiate an inquiry into allegations of misconduct in this last presidential election cycle, and to determine if there was any criminal activity, and if there was, hopefully indict whoever they find indictable. But in any event, to let the entire American population know these are the facts we have found. And I yield.
All right, thank you very much. I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Kamala. Is there any other comments or questions on this very colorful issue of the vote fraud in the grand jury process? Before we move on here. Hearing none. Our next agenda item, 2I, is a process that Michael has invoked here a while back, a very good suggestion, formal nominations for recognition of people, I guess we're creating new offices in Michael's terminology, county stewards, intel scouts, investigators, and delegates from the counties, I believe was where Michael was focusing, although I think that those terms could even be expanded to the precincts and the townships. And also in my terminology, based upon Michael's proposition and more formally in harmony with common law, would be town constables, deputy town constables, and justices of the peace, and general jurisdiction judicial officers, county judge, county sheriff. Are there any nominations from our group for anybody else to fill any of those offices in any place in the whole USA? Anybody have any nominations like that? Are you? Okay, it's kind of a bold proposition. But I do believe our Supreme Court of Law is capable of making a public record that when people are more courageous and more familiar with the concepts here, that we can really start recruiting people here. And at that point, the formal recognition from our Supreme Court of Law for the USA, they can present in their local court proceedings that they are recognized by our jurisdiction. They've got a judicial mandate to move forward in their local jurisdiction in the interests of justice under the higher law, the common law, as clearly implied in the Seventh Amendment. We can do this. We've got a whole lot of power at our fingertips. So before I move on to the next agenda item is, again, I'm going to make one more call. Is there any nominations from anybody for any of these offices? Hearing none. I'd like to, at this point, focus on the list of cases that are pending before our court. We've got we've got 6 now. We've recently expanded a few. As we discussed here, number 5, Dred Scott versus Sanford is brought by Lewis Hammond. We discussed that earlier here, and we will be on our general agenda here. It's not moving forward. We haven't brought forth any summonses for others to appear yet. We're just in a preliminary strategy session here about how to frame our complaints in the interests of justice, and we will give the opposing parties plenty of opportunity to appear and prosecute their side of the case. Maybe they want to say slave trading should continue and black people should continue to be treated as slaves. That will be a real interesting argument for them to try to present. I don't think they will really do it. But we got to allow opportunity for both sides to present their cases, and not only is number 5 Lewis's case there, but number 1 I've referred to earlier is the coronavirus military police state complaint that Abraham of Nevada has brought before us, and I basically composed. We're trying to get a jury verdict in place under the authority of the 7th Amendment to put a roadblock on this looming military police state, because they're not happy with the level of control that they've got now. They're asking for even more control through what many of us believe is this fraudulent coronavirus hysteria. So we've already formulated a general 11 or 12-page jury verdict that can serve as a model for other verdicts, and it's fairly softball right now. We're not, the jury is not moving for the rest of any of the defendants named, like Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci. The arrest warrants may be issued later, but at this point we're not even contemplating that in our model jury verdict. We're just saying that it's illegal to forcibly vaccinate people and things like that, and it's fairly softball, but it's been in the web links and description have been in previous videos and conference invitations, but I can send people updated web links to the model jury verdict and things if you send me an email or give me a phone call or something from my contact information at the bottom of the conference invitation. And continuing on, and we'd like to allow at least a little bit of summary opportunity here. Michael has presented a complaint about the election fraud. Michael, would you like to revisit anything here and make a little statement on how over and above what you've already done on the election fraud issues there that you're concerned about? I don't hear Michael responding. Do you have your mute on, Michael? Well, Michael might be distracted or something. Moving on to agenda item 3. Massive court corruption in Michigan. David Scheid. I don't see David with us. Cynthia Moore's foreclosure, criminal theft, racketeering, and conspiracy, a foreclosure case that we've got. The issues with foreclosures is getting worse and worse with the way they're manipulating this economy. A lot of people, more than normal. The amount of people getting kicked out of their homes is increasing dramatically over what it's already been real ugly in past years. So, yes, thank you for highlighting that so well, Lewis. I don't see Cynthia with us today. Cynthia, are you here, perhaps? I don't hear Cynthia here. And Lewis is, any follow-up, Lewis, on comments on the Dred Scott case there? Are you muted, Lewis? I don't hear Lewis saying anything on.
No, I don't have anything to add regarding the Scott versus Sanford decision. I think that what you've articulated earlier, as far as us working together on a jury verdict and working back from that point. That was the steps that we will take. So nothing further on this call. I yield.
Very good, very good. Was somebody else trying to say something there?
Charles Paul Nally.
Yes, Paul.
Mentioning foreclosure, I will add this to the comment I made earlier about our grand jury petition. Our grand jury petition says we're asking the grand jury to conduct their investigation into election fraud, and then there's a phrase that follows that says, and other criminal allegations. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the members of our team that's going to the federal grand jury has the intent of bringing the problem of foreclosures before that federal grand jury. I just thought I'd mention that. And I yield.
Thank you, Paul. That's good to know. That's nice that you're being broad-based in how you're approaching the grand juries there. Chris Cave from Nevada has articulated concerns. Our court case number 6, massive court corruption in Nevada. Chris, do you happen to be with us? I don't see you in the list here. Chris, are you there? I don't hear you, Chris, and I don't see you in the conference attendees list here. So I think we ought to go ahead and move on to agenda item 2L, news items of national interest. Is there? Does anyone have any news items of national interest that are worthy of our attention here? Okay. Hearing none, I guess my presentation is on. Agenda item 3. I've currently become focused on the manner in which the corrupted municipal government, federal, that is oppressing us, their lawyers, they're good lawyers, they're better lawyers, are insisting upon adhering to some fundamental principles of constitutional law, aka common law, and they're under their evil empire conspiracy is constitutionally mandated to make accommodations for common law principles, all similar to how the Posse Comitatus Act. Posse Comitatus is county-level militia. The word militia usually applies at a state level. At the county level, the same body of people are I believe, Posse Comitatus, and that is embodied in the Posse Comitatus Act that happened shortly after the Civil Municipal War in order to prevent the carpetbaggers from pillaging and plundering everything in the South. And so the Posse Comitatus Act clearly implies a common law jurisdiction, but more to the point of our local community organizing and empowerment agenda that this conference is really dedicated to promoting the nuts and bolts about. We've got, under the so-called Department of Homeland Security, some respect for constitutional provisions, and that DHS, Department of Homeland Security, their sub-agency, Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, has produced manuals and policies that set in place certain specific procedures for responding to quote, emergencies, all forms of emergency, natural or man-made emergencies. And here under the FEMA organization, has advocated what they call community emergency response teams in all neighborhoods. And if we look at what the community emergency response teams are providing in specific detail, it looks like FEMA, in their infinite wisdom, has decided that the best policy for individual teams of action. Somebody's got their phone on there. Please mute yourself. The best policy for individual teams of action is to compose these community emergency response teams in our local neighborhoods and communities of basically 5-man teams, 5-member community emergency response teams. This fits very well into our common law agenda of forming 10 household townships. Okay? At that point, each township would have 2 5-member community emergency response teams, and Michael and others have indicated, well, gee whiz, we're not going to get respect, and we'll probably just get shot or something like that, or packed off to jail if we start really flexing our muscles and making public appearances under these common law, constitutional law principles. Well, we've got additional support here from FEMA. FEMA mandates the promotion of these community emergency response teams in our local neighborhoods, and 5-member teams that are, if we've got people courageous enough to assume the positions of town constable within our individual precincts, there's 10 townships to a precinct, there should be 10 town constables to a precinct, and they're under 5 there would be 20 5-member community emergency response teams in every precinct in the USA. There's approximately 300,000 precincts in the USA, according to the U.S. Census, and so that gives us a real high number. I think that figures out to about 3 million individual community emergency response team members. And the definition of emergency is very, very broad. I dare suggest failure in the administration of justice or unlawful imprisonment and things like that is an emergency. And we can go marching into the courts with our 5-member FEMA community emergency response team and be there to assist our town constables in removing from public office any public servants that might be abandoning their constitutional duties and engaged in some kind of criminal conspiracy to abuse the rights of the common people. I think we can do this. I think we are granting color of legitimacy even further than what we already have constitutionally through the FEMA mandates and the FEMA manuals. And I think this is a real big trump card, so to speak, no pun intended, to make the jackbooted Nazis back the hell off. Okay? I don't mean to get a little bit emotional, but all of us get a little emotional once in a while in the call, and I think it's probably a little bit healthy for me to get emotional a little bit once in a while too. So I think I've kind of done a pretty good summary of that one, and at that point I think I should pause for comments or questions on my presentation about Posse Comitatus, peace officers, FEMA, and organizing our local community qualified electors in the form of FEMA-recognizable community emergency response teams. Is there any comments or questions on all of that? I yield. No. Nobody wants to take a bite? I've made some bold declarations there. And when I make bold declarations, I rather expect somebody's going to take a pot shot at me, and yeah, I usually shoot from the hip a lot, and there's probably maybe one or two things that I said that's a little bit unclear or maybe even flat wrong. I make errors, and so I welcome constructive criticism. So anybody that sees anything wrong with what I'm saying, please bring it to the table, because I do not want to be misinterpreting our standing to exercise authority under the laws of these United States of America. Again, anybody have any comments or questions on this particular issue? Chris. You're with us, Chris.
Then Andre, you've got the floor.
Well, you know, when I go back and I look at, like I said, I'm just not really getting into this, but I've always looked at those who stood up. At some point in time, we have a government that really don't have a problem with coming and getting rid of us. And 4 or 5 individuals, to me, would surely be asking them to become martyrs. I really think that it needs to be more than 4 or 5 individuals under any circumstances. And I'm not sure as to how certain individuals tend to pull those who are willing to stand up for the rest of us, how they pull us out front just so they can recognize that, okay, we got somebody we got to work on. My trust factor for our government is 0. My trust factor for those who work under members of our government is 0. We have a lot of people that act like they in your favor, but is stabbing you in the back. You know, when you sit up there and you talked about the foreclosure, I got about 7 properties in which was taken from me. And before we can talk about stopping them from taking them from us, how do we find out? And I just wish I was astute enough and knew enough about law to find out where are they breaking the laws at first. Those that are breaking the laws need to be pulled in front of the law, needs to be charged. And those are the individuals that I believe need to be worked on in order for us to break this down. But we're starting at the back of the horse and not at the front of the horse in my eyes, where how do we get into these documents that they got? How do we break them down as to what they're doing, how they're doing it, in order to be able to stop them from doing it? And there's a lot that's going on. We got billionaires paying our politicians to make laws that's keeping us where we at. When you talk about the Dred Scott, you know, I'm just sitting up here reading the Dred Scott, everybody talking about the Dred Scott law, but I don't see where he benefited from what he did, because he didn't know that he wasn't a slave, but you got laws that tell him a slave. Just like I be telling people, all I know is that I do what I do. I didn't know that the stuff that I'm doing kept me enslaved, and that I'm enslaved right now, that I really don't have no rights, because you couldn't have told me that. But when you talk about freedom and being able to do what you want to do, no, I don't see that in my life. But I would like to see it in other individuals' life. But in my opinion, and I'm saying in my opinion, if we don't go at the paperwork, if we don't go at the ones making these decisions on paper and be able to knock the information down that they got, be able to turn that stuff over, I just don't see us being able to do anything. They got the armies against us. 4 or 5 individuals go out there, somebody gonna get shot just so they can prove that they got the power. I don't know.
If I may, if I may, Charles, just a couple of Andre's concerns before
We got an echo.
Okay, I think that was. Thank you, Andre, for muting on that, and then please again unmute if you'd like to respond to anything that I say. Number one, I agree with what you're saying regarding the corporation coming at people, and I'll use this term. I like to stay away from the term individual, but in this case, I will use it. Individuals or small groups. So some of your concerns have been voiced before as well by, for example, Michael of Florida with regarding numbers. Now, if any of those 7 properties, though, that were taken from you have a property tax issue, and if that was the foundation for them taking the property, we're working on that right now on Michigan, because the Supreme Court of Michigan, even under the de facto, has ruled specifically regarding common law and taking the property. And they articulated multiple times in their opinion that Michigan is a common law state. So at some of these lower courts, they refuse to recognize certain common law rights. If and when one gets to the Supreme Court, they most certainly recognize Michigan being a common law state. Secondly, I agree with you completely in terms of the corporation establishing war on people. I've said before, I don't think they can do anything but. I think that's the best thing that they do. They can't provide clean water. They can't provide clean air. They can't provide food that will not cause someone various cancers down the road, and they're not concerned with that. But one thing that they can do is they can bring war to the individual or group that they feel is threatening their position. Now, our position, and if you go to Wayne County Assembly.info, our position is one that believes that the common law is and what we've adopted in terms of our community and growing our community, the Exodus 18 model that Charles has presented in terms of the townships and the establishing of the constitutional counties, is the protection. And we think we can do it with 10. Really, I prefer 100. I prefer 1,000. But if we've got 10 active, not 4 or 5, but 10, we can do that. And we have that here on Wayne County. So there are some, we have a committee that right now is working on, and working on a template that can be used by others. If the taking of one's property was based upon property tax, where they're taking people's property, selling it at auction, paying off the liability, and actually keeping the proceeds. They're pocketing the proceeds, where they should have been turning that over to the property owner. That has already been established. So, again, I'm hoping that you join us on some of our Michigan calls on Monday, because some of your concerns right now are being addressed. And nationally, that's this call right here. The Supreme Court of Law will believe that we can establish certain protections for those people that are looking to establish the Republican form of governance on their state. And we are putting some things in place here in Michigan that you will be very interested in to provide that umbrella of protection, even that some of these, Charles likes to refer to them as what I think it was jackboot Nazis. I call them the tyrants, that the protection from, because that is one of our main concerns. Protection for our members in every household of either the Wayne County Republic or the Michigan Republic. So your concerns, I believe, are valid. Let me say that first. I'm not dismissing anything that you've said. I think that they're very valid concerns, especially here on Michigan, where we've got to deal with other things, Homeland Security and others, because of what they classify the Great Lakes as and our proximity to international borders with Canada. They take an extra level of what they believe are their, and I don't even know the word to use, but they feel that they can take an extra level of security, which is entirely unconstitutional in what they can or cannot do, simply because of our proximity to international borders and international waters. So your concerns are valid, and we are looking at those now and how we can protect our members from those things. So again, I'm hoping that you join us on our Monday calls, and glad to hear you on this call. I yield.
Yeah, I will definitely continue to be a part of this. At least there's some individuals, and it ain't but a handful, but at least there's some individuals that's willing to make a difference for the future. I look at, I do community work, and I've been in my community for the last 50-some years. And what I have seen is that I didn't realize that when I was coming up that they was taking things as I was leaving and moving up through my different grades. But after I left school, they took away the home mag, they took away the wood shop, they took away the metal shop, the band, the whole 9 yards. Now our kids have nothing. Now they're at home, knowing that if they're at home and they sit up here and think about a juice box, they're going to the juice box, so where's the education at? So now they even put us in a situation where we can't even teach the kids. I mean, they treacherous as to how far they will go to control and to take over not just land but populations, and it's just ridiculous. I yield.
Thank you, Andre. Got an echo there, Andre.
I'm trying.
Thank you. Are there other comments or questions here in response to the Community Emergency Response Team's FEMA proposition merging with our common law organizing efforts? Any other comments? If not, I'd like to briefly respond to one issue I think I heard from Andre. Andre seemed to think that, I thought I heard him say something to the effect that we seem to be focusing at the wrong end, the tail instead of the head of the donkey or something like that. And that's a legitimate concern. But what we're doing in this conference is a multi-pronged approach. It is true that, the power really comes from the people, the grassroots, bottom up, but there does need to be a framework within which the people can organize themselves. Basically the Exodus 18 model that Lewis is so well reaffirming. I'm really glad, even though Lewis does not embrace formal biblical theology in his own personal system, he recognizes that there's merit in that particular model. So thank you again, Lewis, for being sufficiently open-minded to biblical scripture to capitalize on that, even if you're not turning into a serious Bible thumper here. But we're organizing also, in contrast to our efforts of where we were focusing here, Andre, like you said, that's one end of the donkey or whatever you want to call it. But we're also focusing to provide the framework. That's why we're doing our Supreme Court of Law. Lewis, can you perhaps pull up the map of our super states real quick there? We're focusing in a national manner also. And for those of you that have got the ability to see on the screen, we've got 12 super states. And this creates approximately equal communities from our already organized de facto municipal states, organizing them into 12 superstates. There's 3 of them that are standalone states, California, Texas, and New York State. And all the other states are multi-state jurisdictions where they will have to form their own assemblies and they will have to come together to elect their own delegates. And at that point, we will have an organically accountable 12-member jury under the 7th Amendment. The 7th Amendment respects and promotes, actually, jury trial process, and under the rules of the common law, and the rules of the common law mandate that the number of jurors be 12. Okay? And hereunder, we've got, if we follow this model, we will have 12 delegates organically accountable, subject to immediate recall from each of their constituencies in each of the superstates. And hereunder, we will have a Supreme Court of Law to go ahead and do some hardball eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation with any one of the 3 branches of the de facto municipal federal government. So we're playing both ends. We're not just dependent on our grassroots bottom-up organizing here, Andre. It's a multi-pronged approach, like a battlefield or a theater. We don't just focus in one area or on one side. We focus holistically. It's like trying to cure a disease in the human body or something. You got to attack it from all fronts. We're a body politic of American nationals here, and what we've got is a parasite class sucking our lifeblood out of us. And we need multi-pronged approaches and focusing both not only at the grassroots, like what I talked about through the FEMA organizing and in the town constables, but also at the national level. So I hope I've articulated enough to reassure you that these conferences are dedicated to a holistic approach that is not just focusing on one end of the donkey. We're focused on the whole organic body politic for everybody in the USA of all races and colors and creeds. So at that point, I should probably conclude my response here. Andre or any others have comments here? I yield. Anybody? Hearing none. Maybe we should go back to our agenda items here, Lewis. I think we're about ready to proceed on to agenda item 4, and we're about 15 minutes from our formal conclusion time, I think, here. I would like here to, Lewis, your spell checker is pointing out that I got 2 R's and O-U-R's in agenda item 4 there. I should cure that. Thanks for, your spell checker's working real good. The judicial power. And the presidential elections that Michael and Paul and others on the right wing especially are concerned about. Agenda item 4 is talking about re-engineering the Electoral College to harmonize more with common law, because in the name of God, our electoral polling process is seriously messed up in the way that we are deciding on who will be in control of the nuclear trigger of the most powerful military on the planet. I do not have a whole lot of confidence in either Donald Trump or Joseph Biden being in control of that kind of power. And the point here is we need better process for how the Electoral College that's specified in the U.S. Constitution for electing a president, that concept of an Electoral College, it's based upon our common law jurisdiction qualified electors. And see, registered voters are different than qualified electors. Registered voters are basically 14th Amendment slaves. They're legal fictions, like what Lewis talks about, and you can take control of it and still exercise the vote there if you've got some type of legal insulation to make it clear in the records of the appropriate county court recorder or whatever, that it's not really the flesh and blood person that's exercising that 14th Amendment slavery privilege. It's the legal fiction corporation that is exercising the vote there. So I haven't voted in the last election, but maybe Lewis or some of the others are. But the larger issue is that our current election process is seriously messed up. Okay? And the manner in which I'm focusing here in this Agenda Item 4 presentation is that the individual precincts where the voting is to be counted, they have authority to take back control. If we got the they're in Arizona, in the case that Michael and Paul are entangled in, and I've advocated this in our recent right-wing conferences on Monday evening, and Michael's focusing at the Senate, and Paul was kind of joining with him, I do believe. Please correct me a bit later here if I'm wrong on that, fellas. But a lot of focus is looking to the higher nanny state authority to come down with a stick and whack on those county commissioners that are so corruptedly manipulating the vote count. I do believe that is true from the evidence available thus far. I may be wrong, but that's not how common law and organic constitutional law provides the remedy. The remedy is not top-down authoritarian from the Arizona State Senate in that case. The remedy under constitutional organic common law is to organize in the precincts and go marching into those county commissioners' offices and tell them, look, you need to either correct the records here or else turn the paperwork over to us, which we are the precincts. That's where constitutional vote counting is supposed to be taking place anyway. And either we will decide or you start implementing new policies or else we're going to remove you from office with whatever force is necessary. We've got the right to do that because that's the common law jurisdiction and right of the precincts, the 100 courts. They can go anywhere they want and do anything they want if they are justified under due process of law. That's the way it is. Sorry, it was written in stone back in 1789 in the Constitution, and when the Bill of Rights was adopted and the 6th and 7th Amendment were specified, we got the horsepower, we got the moral high ground, we got the legal high ground, and we can do this if we just get the people to follow the plan. It's not a secret plan like that goofy thing QAnon is doing. Trust the plan. I'm sorry, that's goofy. Our plan is open and on the table for everybody to see here, and it's seriously empowering. So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to focus on in Agenda Item 4. I think that judicial power from the precincts, and the precincts are constitutionally to be the source of the vote counting. And yes, thank you for bringing that up, Lewis. The quotes from Oregon statutes about court of justice. There's other specifications, quotations from Oregon case law and things that say that every precinct in Oregon, at least in the earlier days, had the power to have its own court of justice, and I haven't found anything that says that's been taken away. And so the quote that Lewis is highlighting here is excellent. It's worthy of reading. See, this is a common law jurisdiction court. It's a court of justice, and this is the same type of courts that are referred to in the Sixth Amendment as the trial of all crimes shall be in the state and district within which the crime shall have been committed. That word district, there's lots of case law that says that word district, that's municipal gobbledygook. It really means, in common law jurisdiction terms, it really means precinct. Okay, we got the case law to prove that. And so these precinct-level courts of justice, they have the power. This is Oregon statutes, ORS 1.010 and 1.020. Every court of justice has power to enforce order in the proceedings before it or before a person or body empowered to conduct a judicial investigation under its authority. This is what I'm advocating to Michael and Paul, that they move forward in the Arizona case or other cases by claiming to be authorized by this court right here, the Supreme Court of Law of the USA, to conduct a judicial investigation. I claim that this court has that authority, and we have the authority to deputize Michael or Paul or anybody in Arizona to conduct a judicial investigation as articulated under the general common law principles applicable in every state in the union, but articulated specifically in this Oregon statute that authorizes people, individuals, to conduct judicial investigations under our authority. We can go to the mattress on that one. And subsection 5 on this, continuing on, every court of justice has power to control, in the furtherance of justice, it's got to be in the furtherance of justice, to control the conduct of its ministerial officers and of all other persons in any manner connecting with a judicial proceeding before it, in every matter appertaining thereto. Okay? Every matter appertaining thereto. Any person connected, all other persons connected with any judicial proceeding before it. This is the importance earlier of our 6 cases before us so far. When we see the power doesn't come from our Supreme Court of Law, it comes from the person bringing the complaint before the court of justice, the court of law. The person making the complaint is the one that invokes the jurisdiction. He's the battery that generates the spark, that lights the flame, that makes the justice move forward. So, I kind of got a head steam going there too. I should probably throttle back and ask if anybody has any constructive criticism, first of all, to share with me, and thereafter any comments or questions. Any constructive criticism from anybody there?
Yeah, take a deep breath and relax.
I'm kind of angry at these jackbooted Nazis. Thank you, Matt. Anybody else like that? Yeah.
It's like I live by myself, and sometimes I get so fired up over this stuff I can't sleep. I mean, what they're doing to us, it's like they want to make this into a communist country to where if they want, this is what happened to my mother was 100% Polish, and she went to Poland about 4 times, and she came back a couple of times, and she says that this damn communist was following her around. And it's like you got this spy culture to where if you have a bar or a restaurant and you decided you wanted to open up, it's like, okay, you open up and I have the right to go there or not. I'm not forced to go there. And you had these people emailing the health department saying such and such tavern was open. So they send one of their health Nazis out to come in there, and the guy walks in and, yeah, he orders a beer. And then, oh, yeah, I was able to order a beer at this place and so on. And it's like, then he writes him a citation for it. Well, I'll tell you one thing, if I had a bar and some guy came in there that was a stranger, you know, by rights, we got to check ID. I don't care how old the SOB is. I'm going to take his ID and I'm going to make a copy of it. And he's going to watch me make a copy of it, and he's going to ask me why. And I'm going to say, just in case you happen to be an agent of the government, I really like agents of the government, and I might want to come visit you some night. And we'll see how fast he turns tail and gets the hell out of there. So something has to happen. It's like, You know, when you take a look at all these groups that are marching in the streets, and I don't care if it's Black Lives Matter, the Boogaloo Boys, whoever the hell they are, it's like they're marching at the wrong place. It's like you have to go ahead and go to their homes. You don't go downtown. You find out where they live. And in Michigan here, somebody went to the Secretary of State's house and protested. They went to the director of the Department of Health. They protested there. He's since resigned. You go to their houses. You go where they live. That gets their attention big time. That's one of the things that has to be done. And our other enemy, it's the media. Because what the media wants to do is if they can keep us fighting against each other, I don't care what criteria they use, old, young, male, female, black, white, whatever the hell it is, they got us fighting among each other. And then, well, we're fighting among each other when we have no reason to. They're in the back room tilt-tapping. They're doing stuff. Now they can get away with stuff because our attention is diverted. It's like if I want to sit there and let's say I want to go ahead and I'm going to say hop into a farmer's yard and I want to steal some of his corn. And a buddy of mine and I go over there and we see he's got this watchdog. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some meat or something to bait the dog with, maybe just a can of Alpo. And I'm going to get the dog over to where I'm at, and I'm going to start feeding the dog. Well, while I'm feeding the dog, my buddy's hopping the fence stealing the corn. Well, that's what the media is doing. The media is sitting there feeding us dog food, and then its accomplices are going ahead and stealing the corn. So that's what we're up against. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, just think if the chief of thus and such police department woke up one morning, had 50 people in front of his house, he's gonna start paying attention because it's like we're not going to be. All we have to do is show up, and then his wife is going to cut his nuts off. She's going to go after him. We're not even going to have to do it. She'll get so paranoid and flipped out that it's like she'll say, we got to get rid of these people. And now he's got to go ahead and figure he's got to have a peaceful home. He's not going to get it if he keeps treating us like we're his subjects. So you got to use a little psychology here, and sometimes just one phrase, one paragraph. All the yelling and screaming and property damage? Nah, you don't need to do that. Just a couple choice phrases, a couple being in the right place at the right time. They'll sit up and take notice. If we can I don't know why that health director resigned. I have no idea, but it's like he did not like people protesting at his house. So there you have it.
That sounds good, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Charles.
Are there other comments or questions here?
It's about 6:58, so we've got about 2 minutes before concluding the business portion of the call. We've just been joined by two. One I see is Nikki. Greetings, Nikki, and welcome. And another I see is Andy, I believe. Greetings, sir. Is this your first time on the call?
Andy, are you muted? You may be muted, Lewis.
Okay. All right. Well, I will mute and unmute. And Nancy, was that?
Yes.
Did you? Go ahead. You've got the floor.
Yes. I have a question that I was wondering if anybody has the answer to. In this day and age, attorneys and everybody else are so enthralled with the idea of garnishing wages. I know you can disgorge fees that were illegally gotten. I'm wondering if you can do that with senators, congressmen, mayors, governors, and all that. Because that would straighten out how these dingbats vote.
Should I go ahead and try to take a poke at that, Lewis?
Sure. You've got the floor.
All right, Nancy, yeah. All courts of justice, courts of law can do anything they want if it's in the interests of justice. Okay, Nancy? the answer to your question is yes, we've got the jurisdiction to do this. In fact, the most powerful court jurisdiction is criminal jurisdiction, and that's shown in the Sixth Amendment to be decentralized down to the states, the districts within the states, and as I articulated earlier, those districts technically mean precincts, and there's 300,000 of them approximately across the entire USA, according to the recent U.S. Census material. So the answer is yes. Before one of our courts wanted to overturn a corrupted court ruling, though, or something like that, it would probably be good to secure the additional support for whoever is volunteering therein to be the chief judicial officer that's really the one taking the biggest risk, to have him also work together with 11 others to sign on to a formal jury verdict to articulate that this is an unlawful debt, and it is hereby judicially reviewed and recognized to be unlawful. The previous court that made the previous judgment proceeded in error, and we are hereby overturning it under the high authority of a common law jury verdict. And I believe that would probably cure the problem right then and there. Nancy, I yield.
I would like some more information on that, because I was thinking that when we look at how we vote on things and then we see how they actually voted instead of what we wanted, if there's wording or justification to say, we are garnishing your wages because of non-performance of duty, or the things that you have done are illegal because you didn't follow our instructions, kind of thing.
We could include wording like that into our jury verdict. Yes, and Nancy, we can continue on with this discussion. I should probably go ahead and conclude our business meeting here. Lewis is on a pretty tight time schedule there.
Okay.
And why don't you allow me just a moment here to conclude our business meeting, and we can continue on with this discussion immediately after that conclusion. Is that good?
That's fine. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Yes, this is the top of the 2-hour mark after our conference here has started on this 13th day of February, 2021. I am Charles Stewart. Our business meeting is hereby formally closed, and we are moving on to general open discussion here. Thereunder, thank you, Lewis, for running the board so efficiently. Nancy, you probably have some follow-up there with your issue. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm thinking that, we complain all the time, but it seems like we never actually get any results. And a lot of things that people, that they verbalize on are things that are going to tend to, maybe there's a certain amount of violence in there with. But the only way, since everything they're doing is about money anyway, why not cut off their money for misperformance or non-performance or dereliction of duty or dishonoring their way, their duty to vote the way we tell them and represent us and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they've been sitting there on vacation basically for a year. And I have watched businesses that I've known for 30 or 40 years. They're gone. And yet they pass these things where they're going to take trillions of dollars. They're not telling how they're going to disperse it or who's getting it or why. But then they give you $1,200, $600, or whatever. And you have just eliminated probably 40% of the small businesses in every different state is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And $1,200 isn't going to help or make up for it.
Well, it won't help a whole lot. It won't address the source of the problem. But I'm sure it'll be at least a little bit of help. I'll be real happy to get that.
Yeah, I might make a car payment or two, but that's about it.
All right. Well, we do have a problem there. I think there is a common law strategy. If you have a particular case earlier on before you came in, we have a list in our agenda here. Perhaps you saw it in the email invitation with 6 cases now that are generally before our court. And if you've got a specific case there, Nancy, that you'd like to bring before our court, we can add you to our court docket list of cases here that we're trying to form juries to bring justice to the individual complaining parties that are bringing these cases before our court.
Okay. I did have a couple in mind, but I'll take a look at the others first in case you're already covering it.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be good. And I think you've probably got my phone number, too. We can talk on the phone privately if you like, to try to put a sharper edge on what your concerns are there, if you like.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. So, at this juncture, we're open to general discussion. Is there anybody that has any issues of any of their own interests that seem related to our general agenda of grassroots people empowering here? I yield.
Oh, this is David. I came in really late. I'm preparing to leave the state of Michigan, and Kamala just informed me that you were asking about me a little bit earlier, so I thought I'd check in and say hello.
Thank you, David. Yeah. Your case is still one of the 6 cases before our court. Do you have any quick updates on how your case is coming along?
Well, I've had so many cases. I've got another one that was that I filed on January 5th in the federal court. I was removing an unlawful eviction at the local level here into the federal court, and the federal court has been sitting on it for 6 weeks, even though I filed a motion for emergency consideration and to expedite, and they didn't do anything. I've been living in fear and under threat of being put out into the snow and having all my stuff taken away, and the federal court has done nothing except sit on this thing, and so I'm in a situation of just having to relieve the threat, the persistent threat. So I'm getting out. I'm doing the best I can.
All right. Well, I hope God blesses you in your efforts there, Brother David.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for tuning in. Better late than never. It's always good to hear your voice. Are there others that would like to take the discussion in any particular direction here?
I'm Andy, and I've been phone the first time I joined.
The volume is a little bit soft and muffled there. Can you re-identify who you are, sir?
Yeah, my name's Andy.
Randy.
I'm from Nevada.
In In Nevada, Randy in Nevada, welcome. Please, pardon me? You just checking in, or do you have something to talk about?
Well, I kind of just tuned in, so I don't know what the topic is right now. I did get an email from one of the guys that kind of showed me what the
Sounds like you're breaking up, sir. Maybe Gary, is it possible Gary Bergman might have been the source of your email there?
Maybe you could. He's the guilty one.
Okay. Well, it sounds like your phone connection is breaking up a little bit there to me.
Yes. This is a very slow connect.
Pardon me? Well, I guess we'll proceed on then. I would like to revisit what I'm talking about with agenda items 3 and 4. The whole issue with FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, and what they have recognized as community emergency response teams, and how all of this is supported by the Posse Comitatus Act. There's in agenda item 3 at the very end before agenda item 4 is a web link to a video that's about over 30 minutes long, 36-minute video. But this fella gives a good summary of how, from the early days, before the Civil War, municipal war, the history of the Posse Comitatus Act and its modern applicability. See, the Federal Emergency Management Agency and their advocation of community emergency response teams, that rather harmonizes well with the so-called Posse Comitatus Act. Okay? Because the Posse Comitatus Act prohibits the military from getting involved when the local communities can take care of the problem themselves. See, part of the entire evil empire conspiracy here is to keep the people so stupid and disorganized that we cannot provide for our own emergency responses. That way the nanny state has color of legitimacy to come in and protect us. Yeah, that's what we want. We want the nanny state to come in and protect us. They'll treat us real good. We just got to continue being stupid. And for those of us that don't fit into that mold and that are more willing to, quote, responsibly self-govern through our, quote, responsibly self-governing communities, unquote, then we don't like that. We want the hands-on control ourselves, and even though we're only a few at this point, there are multitudes of us all across the USA, and all we got to do is get connected and comprehend how the common law tradition has been incorporated into our system of municipal Roman Empire modeled constitutional law, and thereunder many common law liberties are still available to us to responsibly self-govern, and if we just start exercising these, we can take back control from the jackbooted Nazis. Okay? That's what we can do. That's what the agenda is here. It's constitutionally lawful, and statutes even recognize it, like the statute I quoted earlier from Oregon statutes about the judicial power and the courts of justice. We've got this authority. So anyway, that's a current revisit of an issue that I think is pretty conversation worthy. Anybody have any more comments or questions on that little rant? Anybody? Okay. Well, I could continue on. There's a nice little group here, but it doesn't look like many people are inclined to support or to participate in the conversations. And I get bored with just listening to one person talk all the time, even if it's myself. And we've basically completed our 2-hour meeting here. I'm kind of toying with the idea of shutting down earlier than we normally do here. If nobody has anything on their minds that they'd like to talk about, how we might work together to promote truth and justice and peace and safety and happiness for all of our common American people here, is there anyone that has anything on their mind that they would like to talk about on the survival of the concept of liberty in our American nation? Anybody?
Okay, I'll do it.
Hey, there we go.
Now, Andre's still on, or he punch off?
Do you have anybody on?
I see Andy. I don't see Andre.
Oh, so Andre's gone. That's the one I want to confront. Was down him where some sites to go to get some information.
Okay. Does that mean you don't have any comments, or can you kind of ad-lib a little bit?
Well, I don't know. I was just going to tell me, one way to show what your thoughts are, how you feel about this de facto government, is to fly that organic constitutional flag.
There we go. I like your choice of words. Problematic wording of that, but more fashionable, is the so-called civil flag, right?
Yeah, but the only thing is, don't use organic. You got to go to uscivilflags.org. And he carries 3 different styles of flag. That's Kevin. Or you can go to Amazon and find it, but I think they do a U.S. peacetime civil flag under Amazon. There's quite a few manufacturers that make the flag. And you can buy T-shirts on Amazon. You can also buy go to Cafe Press. They sell T-shirts and stuff. I got a mouse pad that's got a civil flag. You can get hats. You can get the little lapel pins, patches. I mean, more and more people need to know that there's more than one flag in this nation and what the other flag represents. Because the other flags, it's the military machine over there in the Foreign District of Columbia.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to realize. People need to realize that is not our government. That is not part of the states of America. That's a foreign enclave. Even the Supreme Court has ruled that. So, and everybody should look up the Clearfield Trust Company versus the United States if they had never looked that up.
Yeah,
that's a good.
I recognize the precedent with the Clearfield Trust case law. I forget what can you quickly summarize what the bullet point was on that case?
Well, it's also known as the Clearfield Doctrine. It was done in 1942, and it had to do with money changing hands, basically. But what came out of it is these government corporations lost their sovereign immunity when they started taking Federal Reserve notes. They became a private corporation, which technically they are anyway, and they cannot have any jurisdiction over you without a contract. Even the courts, anybody that's a government agency, unless they have a contract with you, because they're all taking Federal Reserve notes, fiat currency, unlawful, they got to have a contract with you, or they have no jurisdiction.
That's an excellent point. And that also applies to municipal corporations, doesn't it?
Right. And I also suggest people look up March 27th, 1861. That's a good little read. And then also General Order 100.
Thank you, Gary. You're a really talented constitutional scholar. I'm glad you're.
No, I'm still a student. I'm still learning. I'm still learning. I mean, I've been given the title of teacher by the divine right, but I'm still learning.
Very good.
And if anybody that's new into this, they can go to our educational site on Facebook, which is Nevada Republic Network, and watch our videos that we do on our radio show once a week. And some people will learn something. Like we were covering the Articles of Confederation 2 weeks ago, and we're going to do that again this coming Wednesday. We're going to finish off on the Articles of Confederation.
That sounds great. Thank you for mentioning the Articles. That sparks another discussion that I believe the Articles were very harmonious with common law principles, whereas the 1789 U.S. Constitution document established a Roman Empire civil municipal model of government that is actually hostile to our common law traditions. So that's great that you're doing research and promoting radio shows focusing on the Articles of Confederation, the first Constitution, the original Constitution for our American people.
I think a good little handbook to have is this United States Constitution, even though they got the capital U on there, which I don't go along with. But it's the Declaration of Independence, a common lawyer comments clause by clause. And this is one of the books that Brent Allen Winters puts out. And it breaks down the Constitution, the Bill of Rights with common law. It shows how common law ties in with these different articles and amendments. Very good reference book. And that was on Amazon. I got that. Brent Winters has some good publications on common law.
I recognize the name, and I believe I've reviewed a number of his pamphlets. It's more than pamphlets. It's little workbooks, maybe 50, 100 pages or something like that.
He's got some good hard common law that goes back, like we talked about, Anglo-Saxon and all that. He's got a couple good common law books. But another good deal, I don't know if you've ever been there before, Barefoot's World.
Yeah, Barefoot Bob.
I recommend that for a lot of new people, and it's B-A-R-E, footsworld.org. Has a lot of good information on there.
Yeah, I think he's got Essay on Trial by Jury by Lysander Spooner there. He's got a lot of good...
War's a Racket?
Yeah,
War's a Racket.
Medley Butler, yeah. Great books, no doubt.
So I recommend that for people to get started.
All right.
Hey, if I may?
Nancy.
Yeah,
Nikki.
This is Nikki, and I'd like to ask Gary there in Nevada, are you aware of how different the Nevada Constitution is, especially in Article 1, Section 2, than any other state of the Union?
Well, no, I'd have to look it up. It's been a while since I looked at it, because like I tell everybody, Nevada's not a lawful state. It came in under martial law. It came in under a corporate Congress, so it's not lawful.
Absolutely, and the way according to Nevada History Online, as far as statehood goes, is that it had to have a constitution that was approved, and it never actually was approved by Congress. It was just, approved to get, from what I understood, showing videos of substitute teacher in Nevada and Clark County, is that it was to get Lincoln elected again through the Electoral College. They needed that extra vote. However,
the Constitution that was written, it has pretty much, it starts out Article 1, Section 2, and if you call it up, you'll be able to see it, is that it has right in there that, you know, all power is in the people, and then it has a period and a but. What is it? Everything belongs to the federal government. You know, the federal government, in cases of rebellion, they can come in and subdue that kind of rebellion. So it's very interesting, and it's different than any other. But back in 1997, actually, there was a group of people that went ahead throughout Nevada into different counties, and Clark County was one of them. And what they did was they put on the record that they were coming in on a different name as far as not County of Clark or Clark County. I don't remember exactly, but it's different than what is on the books at this time. However, they just changed Clark to be either county before or county after or something like that. And then it just needs to be ratified to take it back under the Republic. So there's a lot of good things that was happening back in the 90s there. I don't know how old you are, if you remember that.
Well, I moved out here in 2007.
Oh, okay. So that was way before your time then.
Yeah. But there's a guy that's forming a new group. It's called the New Nevada State or something like that. He's hoping to do away with Clark County and make the rest of it a lawful state. And I said, well, how are you going to do that? We don't have.
What you can do is just go ahead and, you know, bring that Constitution to the attention of those who care, and just say, hey, are the metes and bounds of Nevada are thus and such, and the metes and bounds of the other counties, and probably it's in the record, because I know it's in the record there in Clark County, about what was being done back in 1997 there in Clark County, but Nye County had already done it, and several other counties had already done it. And the Independent American Party was involved with a lot of that stuff that was going on at that time. I don't know how active they still are, but are you?
I was a chairman for Nye County. Oh, Nye County. I was a chairman at one time.
Oh, you were in Nye County? Is that where you are? You said?
Yeah, I was the Independent American Party chairman.
Oh, really? So
and I handed it over. And I handed it over to Andy Alberti.
Okay, so did you know Gilst? Ed Gilst?
No.
Oh, okay. I think he probably passed away before then. Yeah, but he was the one who got things started out there.
What I've been pushing, I pushed the NRS 1.030 that says the common law of England is the law of the state, as long as it's not repugnant to the constitutions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pushing it under the Nevada Republic Common Law Private Members Association.
Okay. Now, is Chris Hansen still involved down there in Clark County?
I don't know, to tell you the truth. I only dealt with them when I first got in, and I don't. There's only a couple of guys I remember. Okie
doke. Okay. I won't bother you any further about that.
I know Joel Hansen.
Okay, you know Joel. Is he still an attorney?
Yeah, he's still working. You know, he's retired.
Okie doke. Oh, tell him I said hi. Nikki, I'm in Pennsylvania now.
Oh, that's my birth state.
Oh, really? What part?
Yeah, I fly the Pennsylvania flag under my organic constitutional flag, the silver flag.
What part of Pennsylvania?
Newcastle.
Oh, okay. And
I was born in Newcastle.
I'm up in the northeast corner. Okie doke.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, Bidens County. Okay, take care. I'll go ahead and mute out.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, the Ashwander doctrine, that ties into what you were saying about the Clearfield doctrine. Okay, the Ashwander decision. And the Ashwander rule says that if you're accepting anything that is a current, okay, and current is also known as money, it was mercantile exchange, if you're accepting it and you're profiting or, taking advantage of it, you can't sue them. So it's kind of a catch thing. Look up the Ashwander rules, how that would go along with the Clearfield doctrine. And with that, I yield.
Well, see, that's why I say I'm still a student. I never knew that. I'm still learning. And I yield too.
I am too. Thank you.
Am I online or not?
Yes. Who's asking for the floor here?
Well, this is Andy. I'm the fellow that Gary's talking about that took over the Independent American Party in Nye County.
Ah. Welcome, Andy.
He's talking out of turn here, but that's okay. Listen, I tuned in because Gary mentioned, I don't know how I'm coming across, but Gary mentioned the New Nevada people wanting to make a new state and get rid of Clark County. And even though there may not be, according to Gary, a valid Nevada, just because they call it New Nevada, it doesn't mean it couldn't be done, the way I see it. But Gary seems to think that the way they're going about it is wrong, so I tuned in today to get some input. Gary, you want to fill that in?
Yeah, Andy, there's some background, a buzz in your phone system there. Gary, did you want to clarify for Andy here?
Well, I've clarified that with him before, where you can't divide a state to make a state.
But you can create,
well, especially when you're dealing with a foreign de facto government, anyway.
Well, my question to Gary was, am I breaking up? Is that the problem here?
You're not breaking up. You're pretty solid, but there's a heavy buzz in the background. Do you got a fan or something going in the background?
Could be the wind. We got a storm going right now.
No. How about that? Is that any better?
No, it's still buzzing.
Maybe it's off the fan on my laptop. Still buzzing. I don't know. Let me try a different microphone.
Gary, while we're waiting for Andy there, I would like some specifics on your citation about the common law of England is the law in Nevada. I've got similar citations for California and Oregon, but it'd be nice to have that for Nevada, too, if you can find a citation for me sometime.
That's NRS 1.030.
Can you send me the citation, maybe a web link to it in email?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I can do that. Yeah, almost every state has a similar deal.
Yeah, I think so, yeah, but it's really good to document them because that's an extremely powerful citation.
In fact, Montana, I think, has probably the best description. Because I think they mentioned. If you know them,
please send them to me. I'm collecting citations like that because that's a trump card in any on-the-ground encounter with corrupted judicial officials.
Now, you remember I was telling you about King John III of England?
I think so.
Okay, well, anyway, I was going through some of his records, some of the stuff he put out there. Well, it turns out that court system in England, especially the Queen's Court, has been nothing but a mafia handling laundering money, a lot of heroin and child sex ring stuff. Turns out.
Yeah. That ever since the Norman Conquest, pretty much all of the courts of England have been just different clones of the Roman Empire courts of magistracy, where they can wave any kind of smoke and mirrors they want. That's how they work in civil procedure. You're absolutely right on there, Gary.
Yeah, and they break it down how it's a bank and how much money they make, just like our banks of commerce are banks too. Our courts of commerce are banks. And people don't understand what they're really all about. But yeah, so yeah. Is that Andy?
Yeah, can you listen? I'm on the Zoom account with video, but it's really slow. I've got my own Zoom account. I don't know why I'm having a problem with this one.
Well, we're not. This conference is not being hosted through Zoom.
Yeah, free conference call.
Oh, maybe that's the problem.
You didn't read the email. That's why you came in at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing. We're switching back and forth between Zoom and free conference call, depending on whether it's the Monday evening right-wing conferences or the Saturday evening left-wing conferences. The Zoom conferences are on the Monday evening with the right-wing group.
Well, if you don't mind, Charles, I'm going to drop off here.
All right. We'll probably put a wrap on it here anyway, Gary. Thanks for participating and inviting friends.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.
I'll be on the next.
All right. At that point, it looks like most of our main scholarly group here is kind of winding down. I see David Scheid, David Scheid's gone too. I'm kind of thinking about bringing the conference to a close here, everybody. I'd like to make last calls if anybody has anything that they'd like to bring before our court or to just chat about that's of related interest to what we're trying to do here. I'm going to call one or two more times here. Anybody have anything that you'd like to talk about of any relevance to establishing our self-governing communities and promoting justice either at the grassroots level or American national level? Anybody? Well, I don't hear anybody competing for the microphone here. So, if there's no objection, I think I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and put a wrap on this particular conference. I think we accomplished some real good ground here this evening. Lewis's presentation opened up a new proposition for me that the Dred Scott decision is still considering black people to be an inferior race of people that is not worthy of the rights of white people. And that's why more black people are getting shot by cops than white people, things like that. If the Dred Scott decision is actually providing color of legitimacy for those racist policies, then that's worthy of our court addressing, no doubt. So I think we accomplished good here. And one more call. Anybody have any comments or questions before I shut everything down here? Anybody? Hearing none, I'm going to stop.